Okay, this is Understanding the Times night. We've been mentioning the last few weeks, a couple weeks anyways. And yeah, thank you, Ron, for your turn. Thank you. And we will be looking at a couple of things in Christian media, looking at some of the past, but then mostly focusing on two special ones or current ones that are taking place, The Chosen and He Gets Us. And those are the two subjects we'll be looking at tonight. If you have the papers, there's, anybody not have the paperwork? There's on the back table if you don't. All right. And there's 6 pages. First page will be pretty quick, and then the others will slow down a little bit, but looking at things that we'll be examining tonight. First, I'm going to look at some disclaimers, first of all. So, some disclaimers. Can you guys see that okay? I guess I look better in the light, Jim's saying so. Nobody else says that, but. First, some disclaimers. How can anybody be against Christian media? How can anybody look at Christian programming, Christian advertisements, and find any fault whatsoever? Sounds unchristian to be against Christian media. And we're not against Christian media, but it has to be accurate Christian media. That's the point of this, and so that's what we're going to be looking at. But a couple disclaimers at the outset here. First of all, from this study, don't conclude, please, that I'm against Christian movies. It's not all Christian movies are bad. That's not the point of this study. There are some that are good and profitable, and some that aren't good and profitable. But this isn't, if you got a Christian movie, go and burn the DVDs, whatever. That's not the point of this. Also, along those same lines, entertainment that does have a good biblical message or good biblical morals, those are good, those are helpful. It's better to have things like that, stories with morals and good messages, than those that contradict biblical standards and morals. So generally speaking, Christian movies are good. And you can even find good in what we're going to be looking at tonight, the movie, the TV show, and the advertisement. There's some good, but unfortunately there's bad mixed in with it as well. The danger this study will primarily address, and this might be a made-up word, I don't know, the fictionalization of truth. Taking truth and fictionalizing. You see this sometimes in books and movies that you'd buy at Walmart or a typical bookstore. Historical fiction, they'll call it. And so they'll take George Washington, whatever, and a historical character, but they'll bring into the history of it fiction. And that's what we're going to be, especially on The Chosen, that's what we're going to be especially looking at this afternoon, the fictionalization of truth, blending in error, made up stuff. 2 Timothy 4, Paul warned against, we'll mention this at the end, I believe, but Paul warned against people turning to fables, and that's the idea of the fictionalization of truth. There's some truth to it, but it's fiction at its core. So that's what we're going to be addressing tonight. Okay, examples of Christian media through the decades. I'm sure we've all seen movies, shows, media, different sorts of that is Christian in nature, especially talking about movies at this point. Hollywood has done that on occasion, made Christian movies. Not surprisingly, the problem with Hollywood movies is that they are rarely true to the Bible. Again, there's some truth in them. A lot of the history might be accurate, but they add a ton of fiction to it. They're rarely true to the Bible, and they often focus more on appeal than accuracy. Something that looks good. Some people buy tickets to go and watch, buy the DVDs, take home, etc., appealing to the masses as opposed to being accurate. We mentioned this with books. If you see a book that's a Christian book that's on the New York Times bestseller list, it's probably not a good, solid Christian book. To get on the New York Times bestseller list, they can't be strong in what the Bible teaches because it doesn't have mass appeal. Same thing with movies coming out of Hollywood. Their goal is to make money, not to teach biblical truth. And so they'll present something to attract the eyes of Christians, but they'll make it fictional. A couple examples. I'm sure you've all seen Ten Commandments. Last I knew, it was on every Saturday night before Resurrection Day on ABC. They used to always show at that time. Don't know if they still do or not. But Cecil B. DeMille, a very famous movie director, Charlton Heston, of course, a very famous actor, and it's glitzy. It's for 1956, I think. It was a pretty high-tech movie, but a lot of fiction in that movie. Cecil B. DeMille also produced the movie Samson and Delilah. Hedy Lamarr and Victor Mature, a well-known actor and actress. Dave Bathsheba, movie with Gregory Peck and Susan Hayward, top-notch Hollywood actors, but movies that aren't true to the biblical text. And in a sense, they can't be. If you're going to make a 2-hour movie on a Bible or hour-and-a-half movie on a event that it's covered in the Bible in a chapter or 20 verse or whatever, that's not going to fill an hour and a half. So I got to bring in a lot of stuff that's not in the Bible. It's not the best advertising motto either. Mighty as Goliath. I wouldn't advertise our movies as good as Goliath when he's the loser in the battle. But Dave and Bathsheba, Samson, Delilah, examples of Christian movies that have come out of Hollywood. Christian groups have tried to do that then, attempted to present movies. Let's take biblical events, or more so with Christian movies, not biblical events. You don't see a Christian version of the Ten Commandments necessarily. But Christian movies have often been, let's just present Bible truth, morals, doctrine, things to that effect. Unfortunately, just because they don't have the budget that Hollywood has, these movies are not well done. They're often poorly done. They can't hire Gregory Peck to present the movie, to act in it, that sort of thing. They don't have the millions of dollars to have the parting of the Red Sea or whatever. They have a limited budget, so the movies have to be, and almost always are, poorly done, especially compared to a Hollywood movie. Back in the 70s, these movies came out. Thief in the Night. Anybody ever watch a Thief in the Night movie? Okay, Linda. These were very popular back in the mid-70s. They were movies describing the prophecy, the rapture, the tribulation, the events of that. And Thief in the Night was the first of those, describing the event of the rapture. A couple others that followed it in the same series, Prodigal Planet, Image of the Beast. These are all describing the last days, so the rapture, the tribulation time period, etc. And they were fictional. They were, stories intending to teach Bible doctrine. Whether you agree with the doctrine or not is another issue as well. But they were very poorly done. They didn't have good actors. They didn't have good equipment, whatever. And that's what you often see in Christian movies made by Christian organizations. This is kind of a general principle, this next statement, but when the church tries to copy the world, movies, music, stuff like that, we typically are years behind. The world will come out with a certain style of music, and then 5 years later the church say, hey, that's a good music, people like that music, so let's start making that music to Christian words. And so we make Christian whatever style, Christian rock music, Christian rap music, Christian whatever. Even if it's good music, we copy the world, but we're years behind, and we just don't do it as well for whatever reason. But coming to the things we're looking at today, that is not the case with the examples we'll look at tonight. They are well funded and well made theatrically. Both the TV show, The Chosen, and the advertising thing that He Gets Us, they both, a lot of money being poured into those things. Good actors, good theatrics to it. Not like 1970s Christian movies from the past. They are much better made now than they were then. Page 2. Recently, 2 media movements have sought to raise the standard, not to do a good movie, good show, good advertising that is Bible-based, that is well done. People want to watch it, want to see it. Not like the old 1970s Christian movies, and not like Hollywood. The first of these is in the world of advertising. And the campaign is called He Gets Us. I'm going to take a quick little survey. How many have seen a commercial on TV called He Gets Us? Okay, at least half, maybe more, all right. Yeah, they've been on for at least several months. I mean, the first time I really heard about it was at the Super Bowl, or during the Super Bowl time, but they preceded that. So at least February this year, but some time before that is when the He Gets Us campaign started. Some things about this. So here's the general, this is usually the last slide of the picture of the commercial. He gets us, and they often add the phrase, all of us. And they want to include, and we'll point out why in just a moment. Some of the ads that you'll see that are He Gets Us are overtly political. They're not Bible, they're not teaching doctrine, they are making a political point. Couple examples, and all these examples, I just have slides up, but most of these are 30-second commercials, or some are 15-second commercials. Some of them are just, slides or billboard type things. But these are all available online. If you want to watch the full commercial of it, just type in He Gets Us, you can find it. Here's an example. This is obviously just a billboard type thing. Jesus was fed up with politics too. So what does that have to do with the gospel or Christianity, to be honest? But that's their point. He gets us. He knows what we're going through when we deal with politics. But the Bible also says that Jesus said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar. So whether he's fed up with politics, whatever, but he still said politics, government has a purpose, and we are to honor the king and render to them that is what is due to them. Another political one, Jesus, you can see it in the back corner here, Jesus welcomed the huddled masses. This appears to be on Broadway. The couple words on there, you see the word Broadway a couple times, so I'm assuming this is Broadway, New York City, but I don't know for certain. But the point of that, with huddled masses, comes from like the Statue of Liberty, something along those lines. But in our 2020's time period, it's not Statue of Liberty. It's a different political mindset. Talk about the huddled masses. Something to keep in mind to balance that political statement. Jesus taught the truth to the crowd. He didn't just welcome huddled masses, feed the 5,000 or whatever. He taught them the truth. And it was not just a matter of welcoming crowds. This one here, this is a commercial. Those other two are billboards. This is from a commercial, 30-second or so commercial. And you can see people walking across, or just having finished walking across a bridge. And what this is picturing is migrants, aliens coming into the country. Here's what this ad is. A Hispanic voice describes, and the quotations are from the ad, a mother and a father who had a son that heard the head of their country sending soldiers to their town to deal with an insurrection. And then they come back, the conclusion at the very end of the commercial, Jesus was a refugee, He gets us. So what does that teach us? If we don't welcome whoever wants to come, then we are might as well have rejected Jesus. That's the picture. We got to welcome them because Jesus himself was a refugee 2,000 years ago. No relationship, of course, between refugees, illegal people coming in, etc., today to Jesus 2,000 years ago. As a baby, his parents being told by God the Father, get out of here because it's not an insurrection. They were wanting to kill Jesus. That was the thing. Nothing to do with an insurrection in a country or city or whatever. But that's the political point they're trying to make with this ad. Welcome refugees, because Jesus himself was one. False and misleading, obviously. But and that's part of the problem, that these ads, supposedly Christian ads, are overtly political. The next one, other ads oppose or even mock biblical values and standards. And this one, I'll admit, is maybe a stretch on my part. I'm maybe kind of sensitive to this stuff, but here's the ad I'm thinking about that I saw. There's some people, they appear to be, from what I can tell, they're in a bar or some situation like that. They have dark bottles of beer or something like that in their hands, drinking, having a good time. It looks like smoke down in the lower corner there. And the point they're trying to get across with this picture of people in a bar, drinking and smoking, Jesus made space for everyone. You might look and say, well, what about this morning? They had publicans and sinners. But what was that about? It was in a man's house where Levi invited people to his house, and Jesus was there. The purpose was Jesus came to save sinners, not just let's sit down and smoke and drink and while the time away. Jesus didn't want to leave people unchanged. He told them, go and sin no more, not just sit around and drink and smoke and waste your life. But Jesus made space for everyone, this ad says. The next one, commonly, and this is, go back to the refugee ad, this is part of it. They changed the biblical record to promote their agenda. Jesus was a refugee. It wasn't, they were trying to kill him, he was a refugee. Example of this, again, this is a 15-second video, and again, I just got a screenshot. They show people goofing off, playing around, dad has whipped cool up on his face, that sort of thing. And the tagline for this, Jesus let his hair down too. As if Jesus spent his time, making cotton candy mustaches or whatever. Here's a rhetorical question, but can anyone think of any biblical example when Jesus did anything like that, when he let his hair down? However you want to define letting his hair down, they give examples in this video. But is there any biblical example of him doing that? There's one time it may think he laughed. He called Herod a fox, things like that. But he wasn't partying. He wasn't playing games or anything like that. We don't see that at all in the Bible. Whether he did or not, we don't know. But there's nothing in the Bible. So if he did it, we don't know. But to base a nationwide, if not more widespread, advertising scheme plan on something the Bible doesn't talk about and just assuming things, and that's dangerous to me. But he gets us, is the point of this. We can let our hair down. We can relax. We can have fun just like Jesus did. That's not what the Bible says when it says be like Jesus, to let your hair down and goof around. This one here is very upsetting. There's one 30-second ad that pictures a teen girl who is pregnant, and this is spoken in the ad. It's not just left to your imagination. Her boyfriend isn't the father, so you have a unwed teenaged mother, and that can only happen in one way nowadays. 2,000 years ago, one time in history, there's a different way for that to happen, virgin birth, but not anymore. But the closing line to that, Jesus was born to a teen mom. He gets us. He gets all of us. Jesus was born to, as far as we know, a teen mom. What the Bible doesn't tell us Mary was 16 years old or whatever. That's a conclusion that we can maybe draw. But it wasn't out of wedlock in the sense that every other teenage mom with a boyfriend who isn't the father, so you got three people involved here. It's never been like that except one time in history. But to do anything comparing the birth of Jesus Christ unique to any other birth, this is strictly immorality, obviously. That's blasphemous to equate or even compare the virgin birth to immoral relationship. But that's what this 30-second ad does. And Jesus gets us. He gets all of us. So those are some of the examples from this advertising campaign, things that they are presenting in a very well done, much better than 50 years ago, well done advertising campaign, getting people to realize that Jesus is one of us. He gets us. As of December, so this is a few months ago, the ad campaign was anticipated to cost $100 million. They had 2 Super Bowl ads. I think one was the migrant ad, the refugee ad, if I remember right, but they had 2 Super Bowl ads, and they spent $20 million roughly on those 2 ads. The overall goal is to invest $1 billion over the next 3 years. Again, this has been going on for 6 months, give or take. But $1 billion over the next 3 years of money, God's people. This isn't tax dollars. This is not a corporation advertising Coca-Cola or whatever. This is people professing to be Christians, professionally promoting Christianity, spending $1 billion, $300-some million a year for the next 3 years. Where the money comes from is not clearly stated. Christianity Today said it's from a small group of wealthy, anonymous families. And the only one who's named, that I've been able to find anyways, I can't say it's the only one named, but the only one I've been able to find, a man named David Green. He's the owner of Hobby Lobby, the stores, nationwide stores. He's funding this quite a bit. He's probably a billionaire. But a small group of wealthy, anonymous families donating up to $1 billion over the next 3 years. If you were to go on the He Gets Us website, let me go to this first. This is on their website, a couple of statements, and I just copied and pasted this, but be assured we're not left or right or a political organization of any kind. Well, maybe it's not a political organization, but everything I've seen that's political in nature is left. I haven't seen any right things, conservative politics promoted. It's always liberal politics. We're not affiliated with any particular church or denomination, and that seems to be a point to applaud anymore, but not necessarily. Down at the bottom, Jesus in the yellow, Jesus is the Son of God who came to earth, died and was resurrected, then returned to heaven, and is alive today. We also have included many voices in our work here, welcoming diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and experiences to help us address the many concerns and issues we all face. One thing that I always, again, this might be more me than necessarily to be upset about, but notice the word son. In the Bible, it's capitalized. When you talk about God or Jesus, the Son of God, you're talking about, David had a son named Absalom. That's small letter S. Son of God or Son of Man, it's always capitalized in the scriptures, and they chose not to in this, and there's probably a reason for that. I do have, some of these specific events. He came to earth, he died and was resurrected, returned to heaven. But I'll just keep that in mind here for a couple of seconds. On that same page, this is their statement of who they are, what they want to do, etc. We are also about sharing Jesus' openness to people that others might have excluded. Now, 2020, 2021, the last few years, who have Christian groups especially been accused of excluding? Now, illegal aliens would be one. You talk about that. Homosexuals, transgender people, things that are immoral, not necessarily the illegal people. That's not necessarily immoral. That's open to question and debate. But these others, we exclude them, if you want to use that word. Technically, we don't exclude them. We welcome them to the gospel. We want to share the gospel with them, invite them to be saved, but that's not how they would view that. But that's the kind of group that be implied, if not clearly understood, by people that have been excluded. It's not, your typical normal 13-year-old boy. It's the strange, immoral people. The bottom of the page. Though we believe he was what Christians call fully God and fully man, that may not be what you believe. We're simply inviting you to explore with us that he gets us. How might things be different if more people followed his example? Following his example, that's proper for Christians to follow his example, live for Christ, but that's not how you're saved. That's not how anybody is saved. And that statement there, that may not be what you believe. We're inviting you to explore with us. It's a very common approach nowadays, but let's just come and talk about things instead of, this is the word of God that we need to accept, believe, read, study, etc. Let's just sit down, have coffee, and discuss things. That's not. As the bottom of this, the white and black part is from the previous page that I just clicked away from. But the absence of any reference to the gospel, salvation, etc. It mentioned Jesus died, rose again, but even there, what's missing? Why did he die? Well, he died for a reason. The resurrection. What was accomplished by that? According to nothing is mentioned, but salvation, eternal life, forgiveness of sins, transformed lives are accomplished by that. But none of that is found. This here is also from their website. He gets us as a movement to reintroduce people to the Jesus of the Bible and his, you notice the small h, but his confounding love and forgiveness. We believe his words, example, and life have relevance in our lives today and offer hope for a better future. And again, what's missing from that? And what it says, you can say, well, that's good, but what's missing? It talks about his words, example, and life. It doesn't talk about his death, resurrection there. And it says nothing about salvation. It's hope for a better future. Relevance in our lives today, hope for a better future. Nothing about salvation, nothing about eternal life, just a better future and relevance in our lives today, whatever that might mean. So again, it presents itself as Christian advertisement, but it's very shallow, very very weak in its doctrine and even in its so-called evangelism. It really isn't much there unless you dig far. It is hard to find, but He Gets Us offers a Bible reading plan. If you get on their website, hegetsus.com, again, it's not in broad, a clear link to it. You got to search for it. The first plan I found doesn't share the gospel until day 7 of a 9-day plan. So this Bible reading plan, they have 9 days. Day 1, you read something. Day 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Finally, day 7, they do present the gospel. But they're talking to, presumably the goal, unsaved people, and they're telling them, come back 7 days. We'll eventually get around to telling you what the most important thing. But the first 6 days, it's not the most important stuff. And that's not the proper way to evangelize. Page 3. On the same, I thought they had one 7-day reading plan. They actually have several. Actually, the first one was 9-day, and now there's several 7-day plans. Not sure exactly how many. I think 5, if I remember right. But I just clicked on one of those out of randomly, and it doesn't mention salvation at all. All 7 days, or at every word, never mentions anything about salvation. All it focuses on is social change through Jesus, making your life better, that sort of thing, as opposed to the gospel, eternal life, salvation, forgiveness, etc. Here's that 7-day plan I clicked on. Here's the titles of the 7 days. Jesus shook things up, made friends with his enemies, welcomed women, was a social influencer, changed the narrative, walked our roads, changed history. One of these, and I think all of these are from the Gospel of John, one of them refers to Jesus as John 10, I am the good shepherd of the sheep. Quoting that or referring to that passage, it says Jesus referred to himself as a shepherd, not the good shepherd, not the one who gave his life for his sheep, just he's a shepherd. I can't remember which of these 7 days it's on. But again, it brings up the Bible, but it waters it down. He is a shepherd, and it doesn't give the most important part of that. Why is he a shepherd? He's a good shepherd because he gave his life for the sheep. My sheep hear my voice, etc. And it bypasses all of that. A couple of slides before talk about relevance. So the most relevant thing, and I hate that word because it's a word that, I shouldn't say hate the word, but it's a misused word, I think. We got to be popular, relevant, etc. Most relevant thing, eternal life, living for Jesus, being forgiven by Jesus, etc. Not, socially influencing things, etc. But that's the focus of He Gets Us. This might explain part of that. Why is it weak doctrinally? Why is it not evangelistic? It is very ecumenical, and it includes the involvement of Catholics. And if you're doing that, you're not going to have one message of salvation, because the message of, to use the broader term, evangelicalism is not the same gospel as Catholicism. They're not the same. And so if you got both groups working together on this, you're not going to get a clear, distinct biblical message. It's impossible. Catholics aren't going to put up with that. They're not going to support something that goes against their doctrines. Catholic News Agency, it's kind of like a Associated Press of Catholicism. This man named Jason Vanderground is a spokesman, not for Catholicism, but for the He Gets Us campaign. He said that although He Gets Us is not associated with any particular denomination or church, we read that earlier, many Catholics are involved in the development of the campaign, and it has received positive feedback from Catholic media. Quoting this spokesman, as we work to call up Christians to reflect Jesus and prepare them for new conversations with spiritual explorers, it is vital that we engage Catholics who represent 70 million people in the United States. Vital. I didn't read anything, it's vital we engage fundamentalists, Baptists, etc. It's vital we engage Catholics. They represent a lot of people out there. Again, I'm not sure what the end result will be financially to these guys investing $1 billion. There's got to be some financial remuneration that they're hoping for. But if not, there's nothing that they're accomplishing spiritually. It is a weak doctrine, false gospel. Eventually it gets the gospel, hidden away someplace, but it's not evangelistic like it should be. And like they're getting Christians to reflect Jesus, conversations with spiritual explorers. It's not a good, strong, solid program. The online viewership of the individual ads has exceeded 500 million views. This is a month or so ago, so it's undoubtedly more than that now. So 500 million, probably not individual people, but 500 million times somebody has clicked on an ad of He Gets Us and watched at least part of that 15 or 30 second ad. That's a lot of contacts, 500 million people. But how many of those 500 million have even seen or heard the gospel through this, much less been saved through it? Bottom line, for He Gets Us. And I kind of implied this a few minutes ago, but it's asking a lot for unbelievers to return intentionally to a website for several days before learning a thing about salvation. Day one, and that's if you click on the right reading program. If you clicked on the one I chose randomly, you would never see the gospel. If you happen to click on the other one, then you got to go through 7 days, and then finally, or 6 days, and finally on the seventh day, you'll read something about the gospel. If your intention was evangelism, to reach lost souls for Christ, shouldn't that be day one, probably even day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Shouldn't it be on the front page, click on here to have eternal life, and just a separate link to the gospel? But they don't do that. They hope, expect, whatever, unbelievers to 7 consecutive days click on something, so finally they'll, at the end of it, hear the gospel or read the gospel. That is not the same thing as kind of like what we talked about this morning, but a believer spending time with a friend, breaking the ice prior to sharing the gospel. With He Gets Us, there's no personal contact. You might, as a Christian, repeatedly go to a friend, a neighbor, relative, coworker, whatever, keep talking to him, making a relationship with him, and then on the 5th day share the gospel. This here is the other way around. They're expecting the unsaved person to keep coming back to the website to finally, and they don't even know it's coming, to finally find out about salvation. As Christians, we talk to people, we break the ice, we invite them to do whatever in order to witness to them. But we're, like Levi this morning, taking the initiative. We do it, we invite them in order to introduce them to Jesus. This is expecting the unsaved person to keep searching and searching and searching and searching till he finally finds something. And I doubt very many unsaved people are going to click, 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 click 7 days in a row before they, and then finally say, oh, now I'm going to get saved. I doubt that's going to happen. Another bottom line point, distorting the message of the Bible is never an acceptable way to share the truth. We finally come to some Bible verses, and I know this is a church supposed to open our Bibles, and here we are. 2 Corinthians 2, verse 17, for we are not as many which corrupt the word of God, but as of sincerity, but as of God, in the sight of God, speak we in Christ. And that word corrupt is actually the word for a huckster, a peddler, somebody who, goes door to door, not, sincerely sharing the gospel, but peddling something, trying to get something in return, that sort of thing. It's not a complimentary word. 2 Corinthians 4, verses 1 and 2, therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not, but have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. Manifestation of the truth, not covering up, not taking the Bible and distorting it in order to get a political or social change message across. Distorting the Bible is never an acceptable way to share the truth. Third point, the power of salvation is in the gospel, not in impressive presentations. Again, the gospel, it's a long time till it's even shared in this He Gets Us program. But people are not going to be saved because somebody puts together a fancy, slick Madison Avenue ad campaign. That's not how the gospel works. That Bill Hybels kind of started this, 30 years ago up in Chicago with Willow Creek Church, and then who else has gone that? The guy in California, Rick Warren, done the same thing. That's kind of let's make it slick, let's make it cool. People aren't going to listen to preaching, but let's just sit down, talk, chat, etc. And that's not how God works. Romans 1:16, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, Paul said, because it is the power of God unto salvation to all who believe, Jew or Gentile. And those verses, the other verse in 2 Corinthians 4, if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine into them. That's the adversary. Satan is blinding minds. So verse 5, we preach not ourselves, but Christ Jesus the Lord, and ourselves your servants for Jesus' sake. God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of God, of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. Paul was not concerned about impressing people with his appearance, his voice, his language, whatever. He just preached Christ to people. And that is what God used. The excellency of the power is of God. It has nothing to do with us. But not only these two, but it's been going on for decades now, unfortunately. But we got to make it a fancy, slick, attractive presentation in order for people to sit down and listen and hopefully eventually get saved. And that's not biblical. Uniting with unbelievers in gospel work is never acceptable with the Lord. Let's bring the Catholics in. There's 70 million out there. We got to appeal to them as well. So let's let the Catholics come in and influence what our language, what our program is. That is never in the Bible acceptable. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Come out from among them, be separate. There's no connection, light and darkness. Belial, etc. Reject that. And one final point, $1 billion would go a long way in spreading the gospel clearly through missionaries, evangelists, and churches. Imagine what gospel preaching evangelists, gospel preaching missionaries, gospel preaching churches could do with $1 billion. But instead of funding people who believe the gospel and are willing to go knock on somebody's door and share them face to face the gospel, they fund $1 billion worth of advertisements on TV and radio and whatever online without even really clearly sharing the gospel. Big waste of money. Okay, so that's He Gets Us and an advertising campaign. The other is not an advertising campaign. It is a TV I don't know if it's on TV necessarily, but a program called The Chosen. How many have, first of all, heard of The Chosen? Okay, so how many have watched one episode or more of The Chosen? Okay, nobody, okay. Interesting. Well, that's the slide, that's their bunch of fish, what that is. Okay, it's a very popular show. Again, it's not only, I'm calling it a TV program. It's kind of designed like that. It's more an online thing than on CBS. It's not on CBS or whatever. But it's been seen by tens of millions of people. This is before season 3, which just finished, so it's probably more than that now. But millions and millions of people have watched this. It just concluded its 3rd season. The way they do it is different than other programming. Most TV shows have 20, 30 episodes per season. This has 8 in each of those first 3 seasons. Most TV shows you'll watch are either 30 minutes long or 60 minutes long. These vary. Some of them are 35, some of them are 60. There's just no rhyme or reason to it. It's just whatever length of time till they're done, I guess. And they go to the next program. But there's supposed to be a 4th season. Season 3 just ended a couple weeks ago, early April. Season 4, I'm not sure when it's supposed to start, but that'll, as far as I understand, that's going to be the last season of The Chosen, probably starting this fall or spring, next spring. The people behind this is called the Come and See Foundation. Come and See Foundation has a board of directors and has if you go on their website, you'll see a panel of 3 individuals who are the board of directors, and the other side, 3 individuals who are the foundation, represent the foundation. Click on their biographies, different denominations are represented. And again, another Hobby Lobby family member, Mark Green this time, is, I think, one of the members of the foundation as opposed to the board of directors, but he's one of those 6 people that's behind the funding and promoting of The Chosen. They actively seek donations of any size. Again, He Gets Us, there's a small group of wealthy families that are funding that anonymously. The Chosen is not doing that. They want donations. I forgot what it's called, but there's a kind of a public, not taxpayer public, but seeking donations to provide for making TV shows, making movies, etc. And The Chosen, other movies have been made in this manner, but The Chosen is the one that's been the most successful at doing that. They've raised more money from donations than other people who try to put on a TV show or a movie have. There are sizable donations. I was watching a little request for money, and the guy, Dallas Jenkins, says we've received donations including 7 figures. That's $1 million or more. But they'll take $10 or $2 or whatever. They just want donations. At the end of episode 1A, which would be the last episode of season 1, they scroll the names of the donors from that season. And it goes on for about 6 minutes, like I said. So if you want to get on the internet, have your name on there, donate $10 to The Chosen, and your name will be on the video. Because at the end of season 2 and probably at the end of season 3, they did the same thing. But they want donations. They also make money from materials. They sell things. There are clothes, there's books, there's devotional guides, there's things like that that they sell on their website. So again, He Gets Us is secretly funded, anonymously funded. This is maybe somewhat anonymous, but not really, and they're funding it in a variety of ways. This is a money-making enterprise with The Chosen. Like I said, I would imagine there's something coming back to the He Gets Us people. I can't imagine anybody giving $1 billion and not wanting anything in return for it. But this is a money-making program here. The creator and the director and one of the writers of the programs is a man named Dallas Jenkins. You've probably heard of his dad, Jerry Jenkins, the Left Behind books, movies. He and Tim LaHaye were the authors of that. So Dallas Jenkins is his son. And like I mentioned earlier, it is well done theatrically. It's very impressive. They have a scene where they feed the 5,000, and a total of 12,000 people from 36 countries were used to make this 5,000 plus crowd of that Jesus fed with a small meal. So it's very well done. This is not a 1970s TV movie whatsoever. This is very well done. The actors are good. The actors are famous otherwise. They were actors in Hollywood and things before they started this. And as they're doing this, they're also doing other things acting-wise. They're not just Christians who love the Lord and want to, present the gospel. They are actors who are getting paid, but like I said, they are good actors, much better than most Christian shows have been. Things I've learned from watching The Chosen. I read my Bible. I've been a Christian for 50 years roughly. Knowing the Gospels, I preached from the Gospels, etc. But I learned a lot of things I never knew before. Nicodemus, I'm just going to quickly read through these, comment on a couple of them. Nicodemus tried but failed to exorcise demons from Mary Magdalene. Simon Peter avoided paying taxes to Rome, and Matthew was the tax collector of Simon Peter, by reporting illegal fishing by Jewish fishermen. And so people were mad at Peter because he was turning in his relatives. Jesus attended a Sabbath dinner at Mary Magdalene's house. Jesus taught the Lord's Prayer to several children before he taught it to his disciples. He also, the sermon in the Nazarene synagogue, which from the Gospels, Luke 4, that's the first one he ever preached. He first of all preached that sermon to those same children that he taught the Lord's Prayer to, that they just happened to meet out in a field someplace. Andrew told Simon, "I saw the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." This last one, hope you can, okay, it's on there. Joseph, the husband of Mary, that 12-year-old Jesus not returning from Jerusalem with his parents was a transgression. Now, what does that indicate? Right, transgression is a biblical word for sin. So here's Joseph talking to Jesus, how are you going to make up for this transgression against that you've done? So Dad calls Jesus a transgressor, a sinner. Nicodemus visited John the Baptist in prison. This one here, I mean, some of the stuff that you read or hear in this is just ridiculous. Why would they even, and whose imagination comes up with stuff like this? As a carpenter, Jesus built a latrine. Now, what on earth? Why even talk about that? But that was brought out. Thomas, the apostle, Thomas, before he was an apostle, provided the wine for the wedding of Cana. The parable of the Pharisee and the publican, we just read that this morning, was spoken from a room near Peter's house. That's not consistent with the Bible. It was the idea of Jesus from Matthew to host dinner at his house. Mary Magdalene told Nicodemus that Jesus will meet with him. Nicodemus wanted to meet with Jesus, and Mary Magdalene was the one who paved the way. She went to Jesus. Are you willing to meet with Nicodemus? This one here. Jesus didn't say to Nicodemus, "Marvel not that I say unto you, you must be born again." Now, they don't come out in the movie and say, Jesus didn't say this, but they carry on this conversation with Jesus and Nicodemus, and this, one of the things that's in the Bible, is excluded from this conversation. They add other stuff that he didn't say, but they exclude things that he did say. The most important part. The woman at the well was still married while living with another man, and the man refused to divorce her. When Jesus came and said, "Go get your husband," she said, "Well, I don't have a husband." But according to this, she did. She was still married to this man. They hadn't been divorced. The man didn't want to divorce her. Jesus said that the woman's second husband smelled like oranges. Again, what on earth? This goes back, thinking back to he gets us. Jesus let his hair down. Jesus was goofing off. That's the same kind of nonsense. Just make up stuff, which is nothing in the Bible. Thomas and his girlfriend travel with Jesus. Peter told Matthew, it is dangerous to write down the words of Jesus. Jesus' words to Nathanael refer to a time when Jesus said, "I saw you sitting under a tree," that phrase, when Nathanael burned some architectural drawings he made. One of the apostles named James had a form of paralysis. Mary, Jesus' mother, heard Jesus was working hard and said, "He gets that from his father." Both of them, I suppose. Now, the danger of that, his father. Jesus had one father. My father's business. It's God the Father. Joseph was not his father biologically, but he gets that from his father, implying Mary washed the feet of Jesus after a long day, and Jesus asked, "What would I do without you?" Simon Zelotes, Simon the Zealot, was the brother of the man healed at the pool of Bethesda, in the pool where the water would bubble up every now and then. His brother's healing prevented Simon from assassinating a Roman politician. Jesus warned, the highlighted ones are, to me, the more serious, significant ones. Jesus warned John the Baptist not to speak against Herod for marrying his brother's ex-wife, not his wife. So what does that tell us? Did John the Baptist talk to Herod about marrying his brother's wife? Yes, he did. Jesus said, "Don't do that." So here, John the Baptist, by speaking to Herod, disobeyed Jesus, is what this is indicating. Jesus was detained by Roman authorities, threatened, and then released. Early, this is not crucifixion week, this is early in his ministry. Jesus got suggestions for the Sermon on the Mount content from Matthew. "Hey, Matthew, what do you think I should say here? Should I leave this in? Should I take this out?" There's a verse in the Bible, who has been the Lord's counselor? Who gives Jesus or God advice? The answer is nobody to that question, but according to the chosen, Matthew does. After the Sermon on the Mount, Judas Iscariot requested to join the disciples, and Jesus said he is happy to grant that request. Is that how the apostles were chosen? Come up, I'll be one of your apostles. Jesus said, "I have chosen you 12. And one of you, Judas, is a devil, but I have chosen you. You have not chosen me, the Bible says very clearly. But this movie says that Judas Iscariot said, hey, I want to be one of your disciples. And the disciples applauded Jesus after the Sermon on the Mount. The episode of the Sermon on the Mount, the sermon is given mostly in season 3, episode 1, after the 3:1 is. The lead up to it is the last episode of season 2. And as Jesus is about to come to these thousands or whatever, multitude sitting on the side of the mountain, it's like a Broadway show. I compared it to Johnny Carson coming out from behind the curtain. That here's the disciples, Thomas and his girlfriend, etc., standing behind this curtain. Jesus comes walking up. Everybody kind of fawns at him, looks at him. And then Jesus comes up, opens the curtain, and you see this vast audience out there. And it's like it's a show as opposed to preaching one of the most greatest messages ever. It's presented as a show. Again, very contradictory to the Bible and very blasphemous. It kind of presents Jesus as wanting this attention and this applause and stuff like that, as opposed to wanting to present what they need to hear. Out of all those things, 4 pages, I could have listed, those are kind of more significant ones I noticed. There's many more. There's one problem with that list of things I've learned. One problem with that list of things. What do you think that problem is? Yeah, none of it's in the Bible. Not a single one of those things is in the Word of God. So here's a TV show, online pro, whatever, purporting to be a biography of Jesus Christ, has content right here, and yet says, well, that's not enough. Let's add this. Let's say Jesus built a latrine. Let's say he talks about a man smelling like oranges. Let's have people applauding him. Let's have him be a Johnny Carson coming out from behind a curtain to his audience. It just made up one thing after another throughout all the first. I watched every episode of the first 2 seasons and episode 1 of season 3. So 17 out of the 24 episodes. And I had pages. I just wrote down, this is pages. I typed up some, but pages of stuff that just fiction. The fictionalization of truth. That's what The Chosen is. Now, if you were to watch episode 1, season, the very first episode, you'd find this. I know it's not very clear. I just took a picture of it. But here's what it says. The Chosen is based on the true stories of the Gospels of Jesus Christ. Some locations and timelines have been combined or condensed. Backstories and some characters or dialogue have been added. And it's not just some, it's the majority of dialogue. However, all biblical and historical content and any artistic imagination are designed to support the truth and intention of the Scriptures. Viewers are encouraged to read the Gospels. Does God's Word need support? Does the truth need support? The original names, locations, and phrases have been translated into English for anything spoken. Again, this is the disclaimer in episode 1, season 1. You know how many times you'll see this? In just that one time, exactly. If you did not catch this, the first 5 minutes or whatever of the program, season 1, episode 1, you'd never see it again. They don't keep telling you, this is fiction. It is, some dialogue has been added, but it's much more than just some. And a lot of it is inconsistent with what the Bible presents about what happened there, contradictory to what the Bible says. Here's the problems with the Chosen. I know I'm going over time, so we'll speed up a little bit, but this is obvious from those previous couple of slides, but it adds much that is not in the Gospels. Pages of content that is not in the Gospels. And that is neither good nor necessary. It is impossible to improve perfection. They have the script, if you will. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John wrote it down. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were inspired by the Holy Spirit. But just like Hollywood, it's not enough. We got to do a four season, 32 episode program there's not enough in there, so we've got to add things that never happened. So we'll make stuff up. That is, if it's not blasphemy, it's as close as you can get to adding things to what the Bible says, especially some of the content that they do say. The very first episode, the one that has the disclaimer, in the first 50 minutes, so almost the entire episode, there's a couple minutes beyond this, all but the recitation of a verse in Isaiah is fiction. The very opening, they quote Isaiah 43, verse 1. It's kind of I think it's Mary Magdalene as a little girl before the episodes of the Gospels take place. And there's something going on in her family's life, and they quote Isaiah 43:1. That verse is quoted again about the middle of the episode. And even that part with Mary Magdalene, that was fiction. So the only part that wasn't was a Bible verse. But fiction, all of it. And yet that was their opening salvo of The Chosen, the biography of Jesus, 50 minutes of fiction. In the opening 2 episodes, Jesus appears very briefly. In the first 50 minutes of episode 1, he's not in at all. He's kind of the tail end of episode 1, and then briefly in episode 2. This is not how the gospel writers approach the telling of his life story. Matthew starts off genealogy and the birth of Christ. Mark doesn't even do that. He just goes right into the life of Christ. Luke, the background, birth of John the Baptist, angel appearing to Mary, etc., and the birth of Jesus. John, some doctrine, talk about John the Baptist, and then jumps right into the life of Christ. And the doctrine's even about Jesus. That's not what this program does. It adds a bunch of stuff they just make up for the first 2 hours, basically, of their program called The Chosen. The makers of The Chosen view it as a great opportunity to introduce people to Jesus. People are encouraged to invite your friends over, have a watch party at your house, that sort of thing. You've probably heard about that. But it's not very evangelistic. Again, to be honest, He Gets Us is more evangelistic than The Chosen is, believe it or not. I've watched, 16 or so hours of The Chosen, and I've not once heard about salvation. And I assume season 4, they'll talk about the death and resurrection of Jesus, but what they'll do with that, I don't know. But 17 or whatever hours, and they never once said, you're a sinner who needs to be saved. Jesus is your only Savior. I've never said that one time. It's not very evangelistic, and really not evangelistic at all, at least so far. The individual plays Jesus. He's an actor, Hollywood actor. He is a Roman Catholic. On top of that, he has committed to using his role as Jesus to advance Catholicism. Not to advance the gospel, Christianity, but to advance Catholicism. And I found a couple of things, not looking for these, but looking for something about this man. I came across these. Not the clearest picture, but that's the guy right there that plays Jesus. His name is Jonathan Roumie, the name up in the top left there. And it as well says Dallas Jenkins, and they're meeting the Pope in Paul VI Hall, wherever that, I assume that's in Rome. But that, you can say, okay, he's just two famous people meeting. But wait, this next slide. There is Jonathan Roumie. This is maybe his Instagram, whatever page this is, but it's his official thing. There he is kneeling before a bloodied crucifix. Jesus still on the cross, which is Catholicism to the core. The repeated, continual sacrifice of Jesus and the Mass and everything else that they do. And this is him presenting his faith, his belief in a dead man on a cross. And this man has committed himself to, hey, I'm Jesus. And he knows he's not claiming to be Jesus, but he's using his acting job of Jesus to present not the gospel of Jesus Christ, but to present the teachings of Catholicism, which totally contradict the gospel of Jesus Christ. And yet, Dallas Jenkins, I assume he's an evangelical, but he's He's there and with the Pope as well. I think I saw another picture where I saw Dallas Jenkins there, but I didn't put that in there. But it's doesn't present the gospel at all, and then it presents instead, or at least a man takes advantage of this to present Catholic doctrine. The program itself seems to subtly promote Catholicism. You mentioned that one statement, Mary, or Jesus said to Mary, what would I do without you? What would Jesus, the Son of God, do without Mary? Incredible. This part here is subtitles. The Apostle John, and this is all fiction too, it has Mary is giving John counsel on how to write the Gospel of John. And that never happened, obviously. But the Apostle John is called Son. Again, small s. But look at how they, in the subtitles, how they address Mary. Capital M. And again, that may be a small thing, but promotion of Mary is special. Mary is different. Capitalize her name, but don't capitalize Son when it relates to Jesus, the word his, etc. Capitalize Mother, Mary. Okay, final page. Lessons for believers from these examples of Christian media. Things that we can learn and hopefully take heed to. Acts 17:11. Anybody know what that verse is? It's one of our favorites here. These are more noble than those of Thessalonica, the Bereans. They searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. We need to be very discerning and compare what we see and hear with the Word of God. Again, he gets us and the chosen both say we're Christian groups, we're presenting the gospel, we're sharing the good news, etc. And yet he gets us, waters down the gospel. The chosen so far hasn't even presented the gospel, changes, adds, subtracts, etc. from the Word of God. But it's a great TV show. It's beautifully done. Satan does things well. He's not I forgot, was that you? Somebody recently said, maybe it was in prayer meeting the other day, but how Satan does things, and he does things attractively, or something to that effect. Can't remember who it was or where, I guess, but we can't be impressed by presentation is the point. Be discerning. Look at what is being presented, not just how. On the same lines, we need to beware of the deceptive work of the adversary. I'm still in 2 Corinthians, so I'm going to go to these verses here, chapter 11, verses 13 through 15. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an image of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. You might say, Pastor, how can you compare Dallas Jenkins and the Green family and He Gets Us people to false apostles? What are they doing? They've got the Word of God, but they're ignoring the Word of God. They've got the gospel, presumably, but they're not sharing the gospel. They're presenting things that never happened as if they did happen, constantly over and over and over and over. That's not God. God would not do that. Somebody else would have to be behind this program. Satan is called a deceitful worker. Makes things look good, angel of light, but presenting false things. We need to be wise stewards of our money. $1 billion. Millions of dollars. Who knows how much is going to the chosen, but multiple millions, obviously. Put on a program, 32 episodes of a program, maybe that'll be $1 billion too by the time it's all over, but many, many millions for sure. Philippians 4. The apostle says, I don't need your money. I'm content, but you want to support the gospel, praise the Lord, you'll be rewarded for that. I desire gift on your account, on your account. Be wise stewards of your money. If you're going to support Christian groups, ministries, whatever they are, make sure it's a good, sound, solid Christian group that you're sending your money to. Be a wise steward of it. We must remember that just because something is popular doesn't mean it's good, and also doesn't mean it's bad. We can't say, well, everybody's watching it, so it must not be good. It can't be true if everybody's watching it. Or the other way, it's got to be good if everybody's watching it. Popularity doesn't prove goodness or badness. You got to test things. 2 Timothy 4, I think I referred to this passage a few moments ago as well. I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Preach the word. Be instant in season, out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with all longsuffering and doctrine. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers, having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. And a couple phrases there in verse 3. They will heap to themselves teachers, not just one or two, but popular, and will listen to them. These false teachers, they'll be the popular ones. That's what Paul says there. Test it. Make sure that whatever it is that you watch, read, listen to, whatever it is, test it by the scriptures. Again, back to Acts 17:11. Next one, kind of mentioned this earlier, but we must believe that the gospel itself is the power of God. It needs to be proclaimed, not popularized for a sinful world. Just share the gospel. God can save people without the chosen, without He gets us. He can save people just through some simple little Christian taking a tract to somebody that has the gospel and say, here, read this. Let me talk to you about that. We don't need fancy things. Just share the gospel. That's where the power of God is to salvation. Along those same lines, we must not follow the lead of the rich man in hell. Remember what that man said? Send one of my dead brothers back. Send me back. Send somebody back from the dead. If somebody from the dead comes and talks to them, they'll believe. And Abraham says, no, they won't. If they don't believe the Bible, they won't believe even if somebody rises from the dead. The lead of the rich man, if someone made a cool presentation, if somebody just make the gospel, make the life of Jesus cool, He gets us. He's applauded as He walks out on the stage and people looking at Him behind the curtain. Just make it cool and people get saved through that. And Abraham's answer still is true. If they don't hear God's word, they're not going to be persuaded by fancy things, because it's not us, it's not the movies, it's not whatever that God uses. God is the one who works. It's not I'll say because Pastor Tom's preaching, because Dallas Jenkins is directing it. God is the one who works to save souls. Doesn't require anything, fancy presentation at all. The final line goes back a few years. 2019. I don't know how many were here for this. Okay, a few. We reviewed one of the Understanding the Times, this book here, Misquoting Jesus, by a guy named Bart Ehrman. He was the professor of theology, chairman of the theology department at the University of North Carolina, not exactly a theological school. But this book, the story behind who changed the Bible and why, he says there's a lot in the Bible that's not supposed to be there, and we should take out of the Bible. And looking at that, so that's wrong to take things out of the Bible. It is equally wrong to add things to the Bible, which is what The Chosen especially does. Complete fiction. I would guess, just without calculating, I would guess 75% of it, if not more, is fiction. And yet it's presented, this is The Chosen, this is the life of Jesus Christ. Revelation 22, God warns us, don't take away from the Word of God, misquoting Jesus, and don't add to the Word of God, which is what the chosen does from the first moment that it appeared. Mary Magdalene is a little girl. That's nothing in the Bible about that. Don't take from or add to God's Word. All right, that is the end of the presentation.